Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
9:30? Okay.
I get every,
And then I'm gonna have to go into your email.
Well, we have.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Give her a little bit.
You'll hear about it.
And it can be a lot. Having
Wait a
a
minute.
dog in there, but.
Dylan.
Oh. Yeah.
Morning, Rich.
I can't because it's an executive session. So I sent it an email to you this morning. I'll open it up in your email. It's the only way I can do it.
No, I don't think you did. Let's see. I know. The most important part. Yeah, but I asked, so I feel like that's okay, you know? I invited the. Maybe it's get it.
That's right.
I'm trying to help you.
Right here. Well,
You try it.
Good, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Mike, how are you? Yep, open the door.
You need something, Alan?
Morning, how we doing?
Who's Daisy Stebbins?
he is with Ida Boyd.
What, I can't hear. Tom's asking.
Okay.
Who's Dave? Hey, Clayton. Clayton.
They had a good time. Just go.
Oh, yeah, she's, yeah.
She's a cutie.
Shutting this on.
Morning.
Morning, Helen. Helen, I think there's a seat right here.
You can move it if you want to pull
Oh, I
another
know.
one.
He's, oh,
Those are
I
just.
don't know why this is frozen. I don't know.
He's always the first, yes, at the front of the class, how are you?
Yeah, you're not getting the side.
I can't believe it.
I'll cover for you.
I don't know why it's frozen.
Can they hear us?
Tom, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Okay,
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
welcome, everyone. This is the fullest room we've ever had here. And appreciate everyone being here today. It's actually a lengthy agenda and we'll move right along, but we have two new board members appointed by the county exec. Laura I'm pronouncing her Zelliger.
You got it right.
All right, and Mike Cassidy. Would you, Laura, just let everyone know a little about your own background?
Sure, happy to. I'm happy to be here. Laura Zelliger, at my full-time gig, I'm the CEO of Northeastern Association of the Blind at Albany, just half a block up from here maybe. And I've spent a number of years in senior executive leadership positions. Before this, I was the Housing Authority in Burlington, Vermont. And then about 20 years of criminal justice policy and practice at the state level, federal, and community based.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I think everybody knows Tom Cassidy, who's a lobbyist with, Mike Cassidy, not Tom Cassidy. Mike Cassidy, who's a lobbyist with, good morning, Luke, with Brown Weintraub. He'll be joining the board. He was unavailable to make this meeting, but he's going to be attending.
It's right. We have also two new, this isn't done yet. We have two new staff people. Would you both stand up and introduce yourselves?
My name's Clayton Beck. I was earlier with ESD as part of the New York Ventures Investment Fund, and now I am project manager working on projects for him.
I am Dylan Zurich, formerly with Troy, Planning Department, Economic Development. And now I'm doing a lot of development work here at the Alliance, so looking forward to working with all of you.
And for Laura's benefit, I thought, I hate it when people do this, but I thought we'd just go around the table and introduce ourselves so that she had a better understanding of who she's working with. So let's,
Helen Brooks, FedEx Corporation.
Rich Rosen with Columbia Development.
Mike Sanguani, O'Donnell and Associates, a government relations firm here in Albany.
Mike Laughlin with Albany County.
Ally Garcia from the Alliance, I'm secretary here.
Amy Thompson, I'm the CFO of the Alliance.
Kevin Catalano, Director of Commercial Lending here at the Alliance.
I'm Caitlin O'Brien, Chief of Staff for the Chairman of the Legislature.
Alan Alexander, NBTV.
Luke Rogers, also with Albany County.
And on the phone, we've got our counsel, Tom Owens, and we've got a guest joining us, Dave Stebbins, who will be talking a little bit later about the Altec steel site project.
so.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And we appreciate the fact that Tom is with us today. He's on vacation. He is in the Netherlands. Fortunately for him, it is only 6 hours later than here, so this isn't at some really odd time. It's just completely disrupted his day, that's all. And thanks for being here, Tom.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
So I don't know what this means. What is roll call?
We have a quorum, it's just for the purpose of the staff will know who's here. It's just, we have a quorum and we can proceed.
Fine. Did everyone have an opportunity to read the minutes from the previous meeting? Is there a motion to approve them? Motion. Second. Are there any comments or questions about the minutes? All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Thank you. So let us move directly to the committee reports and the finance committee.
So everybody, I hope I had a chance to review the 6-month numbers through year-to-date through June. Revenue for year-to-date was $5,249,000, which was derived from a combination of reimbursement from the vouchers from ACBDC, operating funds from Albany County, our rental income that we get, management fees from the IDA and the CRC, and then we also received stage grant funds, which are restricted obviously for grant disbursements. The revenue we received obviously is considerably larger than our budget, given the stage grants. We budgeted $2 million for that amongst the 4 quarters in 2024. With that, our cash position is very strong at $5,261,000. We expect to receive about $200,000 of ARPA funds during the 3rd quarter. And in May, we did move about $3.5 million into a 3-month CD at KeyBank to earn more interest at a higher rate. Amy, what is that interest we're getting on that?
I think it was 4.12.
Okay, so it's over 4% interest. Expenses year-to-date were $542,000, the biggest expense being payroll. We were favorable to budget by $241,000 due to the fact we just recently filled the 2 budgeted staff positions in the 2nd quarter. And we're under budget on other business line items as well. Staff's done a great job of keeping costs as low as they can. Change in that position year-to-date was $4.7 million compared to a budget of $144,000. Again, mainly due to receiving the stage funds and additional operating funds from Albany County. Chairman, that's my report.
So I hope everyone had an opportunity to look at the numbers, and you get 2 opportunities to ask questions because you can ask them to Alan, and in a minute you can ask them to Amy too. Are there any questions at this point in time? Okay, then thank you very much. Rich, do you have a comment about the?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we've got the 990 that we have to file. It's marked draft, but after today's meeting, we're gonna approve it for submission. And I'm gonna turn it over to Amy to go through this quickly, to go through the form.
This is an annual filing required for non-exempt exempt corporations. So it's just basically a condensed version of findings of our audit showing the revenue, expenses, liabilities, and assets. Once this is filed, I'll be able to file the Chart 500 with the state as well. So anyone have any?
And I think that the state requires that the board just review the 990, doesn't necessarily have to pass it, but just that you are presented with it and it's there for your review.
So they're always interesting. This didn't have very much to say. But does any board member have a question about any of this? Then, Rich, thanks for.
So do we need a resolution to approve for submission or no?
Tom, what do you think? Should we?
Yeah, if possible, if it's not too much work, the committee is the one that authorizes and approves this. If they could just vote as a committee, and I know everyone is on the committee, so if we could just have a resolution to direct staff to file the 990, that would be great. And then this will be posted on our website once it's filed.
So Tom just mentioned what the resolution is. Could we have a motion for that resolution? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. And let's turn to Amy for any comments she'd like to make.
Everything was done in the finance and audit. I don't have any comments.
The one thing, let me speak on Amy's behalf, because of the growing responsibilities that we have at the Alliance, we probably will be looking to bring on some additional support with the finance team. Amy's looking for a kind of an accountant level person. So if anybody knows anybody out there that might be a fit, we'd love to hear it. It's tough, still tough hiring, but we're at that point where we really need some additional support on the finance side with all the organizations that we seem to be attracted, that we have attracted. We'll hear a little bit more about that later in the agenda.
So that's a full-time position, Kevin?
Yes.
You're gonna need a new org chart to see the reports thing now, huh?
Yeah, I think we need that expanded paper, to put an org on there. But Alan, you want to go with my report?
Yes, please.
Well, I'm not going to go into too much detail because there's a lot else on the agenda, and some of you have to leave early. I understand. Alan has to leave.
Yes.
9:40 now. 9:40.
Oh.
So the big project that we're working on right now is the Altech Steel site in Watervliet. And what I'd like to do is turn this over to Clayton Besh and Luke Rogers to talk a little bit about the project and then introduce our consultant who has been hired through a grant we received from the EPA. So.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure, as you all know, the site is a 68-acre brownfield on Watervliet, formerly the Altech Steel manufacturing site, and has been recognized as a EPA Superfund. In 2021, DEC investigated and began remediation, removing most of the buildings and identifying where all the hot zones were for remediation. Recently, the Alliance has negotiated a liability agreement between DEC and the Alliance, which has meant that the Alliance and the county will be indemnified from any past hazardous waste disposal and protected from any future remediation obligations, which will then allow make us eligible for application for the state's brownfield cleanup program, which qualifies for very attractive tax credits, which we can apply to third-party developers or volunteers, as the DEC calls them, or DEC calls them, that will then be able to remediate and continue to develop the site. Then, as Kevin said, we've also been awarded a grant by the EPA's Office of Brownfield Land Revitalization to fund Vita Nova, a brownfield remediation consultant, to evaluate the site and present recommendations for its redevelopment and possible commercialization strategies. David Stevens is with Vita Nova and formerly with the Buffalo Urban Development Corp., and he'll be giving a summary of their progress to date. Do you have anything more to add?
No, that's a great summary. I would just say that, in our investigation, nothing to date has changed our opinion that this is probably the best manufacturing site that we have in the county, given a number of things that David will probably touch on, including, importantly, the proximity to transmission level power, which is a rare asset in the county and in the state, frankly. So I can turn it over to you for a quick presentation, David.
Luke, I want to ask one question.
Sure.
Wait, I just want to ask one question. In the indemnification, this includes any new technology that might be developed in the future that finds something that currently doesn't exist, we're indemnified for that.
I may punt to Tom Owens on that one, but my belief would be yes. What we can't do, obviously, is make new messes or go in and disturb things that are currently there in a way that's irresponsible and leads to it going off site. But beyond that, we're on solid footing. And Tom, I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
No, I think that's spot on, Luke. I know the question is often asked if some new technology is developed that all of a sudden can now detect contamination that may not have been able to be detected before. But in this instance, as long as we don't cause it, then we're protected.
Yeah, the idea here with DEC, and I gotta give them credit. This is an extreme example of cooperation, which DEC is not always known for, but they were just fantastic at this. And there is some significant ground contamination here, and the DEC felt that instead of trying to mitigate that contamination, it would be least harmful to the environment to leave it there and allow us to cap the site. So what we will ultimately, at some point down the road, be responsible for is capping that site as we develop it and leaving that contamination in the ground. We'll probably have to have monitoring wells on the site, and if anything bubbles up there, we'll have to dispose of that in the appropriate manner. But it's a great example, and as Luke said, it is the single best manufacturing site that we have in the county. And this has been something that's been done before around town. The most recent example of this, I guess, to give everybody a frame of reference, would be the Mohawk Harbor project in Schenectady, where the casino and the new hockey stadium and all that stuff is going on. That was a very similar site to what we're dealing with here. But Mr. Chairman, you want to have Mr. Stebbins? Dave, why don't you go ahead and hit it? Are you gonna? You got it up already. Okay, great.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
PowerPoint presentation? Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for letting me join your meeting. As Luke said, my name is Dave Stebbins. I'm the Senior Project Advisor with Vita Nova. And before that, I spent 40 years doing economic development and significant brownfield development in Buffalo, New York, several hundred acres of former industrial properties. I was responsible for repositioning and redeveloping. What we'd like to cover today, three key items. Number one, we'll just do a quick overview of our scope of the technical assistance that we were assigned to do. We'll look at some development, really disposition strategies for the board to consider for this property, and then a number of different conceptual site layouts for how the property could be redeveloped. As Luke said, this is a technical assistance contract through the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Vita Nova is a subcontractor to the prime contractor, which is GDIT. Now, this scope involved a site visit and review of existing site conditions, a review of all the existing information that's available for the site, including environmental information, and, critically, I think for this site, some of the infrastructure assessment, access really going to and from the site. interviews with key stakeholders. What we're going to kind of talk about today is a preparation of some disposition alternatives and conceptual site layouts. And at the end of our assignment, we'll have a final webinar with the core team, and we'll issue a report for you guys to be able to review and have with you.
Hey, Dave.
So let's talk.
Dave,
What's that?
Dave, could you go back to the past slide?
Sure.
So as you can see on this slide here, all of the surface contamination has been taken care of. All the buildings have been taken down with the exception of the one you saw in the previous slide, which is a big, what is it, about 150,000 square feet shed? Huge, but it's structurally sound. But all of the buildings have since been taken off the property. Most of the contamination was asbestos related, so that's all gone. But the really bad stuff is in the ground here, of course. But just to give you a kind of little visual reference. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No problem. So there's really three basic disposition alternatives that we looked at with a hybrid version of the third one. And all of them, honestly, involve retaining the existing building. We think there's value to having a building that's almost ready to go. It certainly would need some work, but having an existing building, it gives you a better shovel-ready and turnaround status for bringing industrial users to the site. This is not a true shovel-ready site yet, though. I mean, there would be some work and some preparation and some internal infrastructure that would be necessary to bring to that status. So two basic things to approach this is. One is to essentially issue an RFP and either do it as a joint venture or to simply sell the land to an experienced industrial developer. With obviously whatever guidance and restrictions that the board and the organization would want to bring to that to make sure that the types of uses that are end up there are the types of uses that you're looking for. This has minimal risk, honestly, for the organization now, although it does provide you less control over future development, and that would involve all 70 acres and essentially outsourcing that development and in operation of the facility as is. The second primary disposition alternative would be for the Alliance to serve as the master developer, for the Alliance to prepare the internal infrastructure, the roads, sewer, water, and other internal infrastructure that's there. Work with National Grid to bring in the power. The power, as Luke mentioned, is adjacent to the site, but a new substation would have to be established. That gives you the most control over what happens there with the users being brought to the but it would involve obviously some investment on behalf of the Alliance through grants and other sources to bring to the table to get that site truly shovel ready. And it would be also operating and leasing the existing building. The next third one, and there's really two options here, is kind of a hybrid approach. One would be for the Alliance to retain the existing building, the 150,000 square foot building, to treat it as a local business center, some type of incubator building where you could subdivide that and bring in small users, entrepreneurs to the site, particularly in the areas where the micro, the tech industry and those types of wind-related users that the Alliance is looking for. And then to basically, and we'll see when we look at the conceptual layouts, and then to basically sell off the other 60 acres of raw land to an experienced developer with the same parameters that would be done if you were to sell the whole thing. Providing guidance, and perhaps even land use restrictions on what types of users can be brought to the site, making sure that whatever developer is brought in to do that development is aligned with the mission and objective square feet of manufacturing enterprise development center as part attached to that existing 150,000 square foot building. And therefore it's kind of a best of both worlds where you have an experienced developer that will be able to develop the rest of the property, but you have some control over and maybe even a feeder for users for the larger sites within the site. So
Before I go on to the conceptual site alternatives, any questions about this? Anything more that I can review? All
So,
right, I'll leave it.
No.
Go ahead.
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Thank you. So as far as uses, have we come up with a list? And, from a zoning perspective, I'm a developer and I want to come in and I'm interested. Who am I dealing with for approvals? Because of the complication with environmental, giving it to a local municipality to do seeker reviews and things like that could get a little bit twisted. Can the county step in and be the lead agency on approvals?
Yeah,
I would, and this is something that we would recommend, is that the county does whether it's a generic EIS or basically a long-form environmental assessment of the property to get the site shovel ready. In any case, we would recommend the county doing that to take control over that, and that would actually speed up future development by whoever does it, whether it's the Alliance directly or whether it's a third-party developer.
yeah, I think.
And I think what's also possible is for you, and I've done this in a project at an old pig iron factory in Buffalo, where my organization, Buffalo Redevelopment Corporation, we entered into, actually this goes so far back, we actually originally entered into a voluntary cleanup program with DEC for an entire 200-acre site. And then we built the infrastructure, this would be where we served as master developer, and we sold off land to individual developers for end users, and we were able to assign our VCP agreement to those individual developers. So you would also be able to do that as the Alliance enters into a program now. And that would be part of a negotiation you have with whatever end users, whether it's a master developer or end users that you would bring into the site.
Just generally speaking, what the ultimate use of the property would ideally be, in keeping with the county exec's strategy for redevelopment. So that's alternative energy, clean tech, things along those lines. As we all know, the local government zoning and planning issues are always a challenge. Some communities more than others. This, as you know, sits in the town of Colony. Luke and I met with the town supervisor. His primary concern was getting this thing back on the tax rolls. Just for everybody's edification, and Mike McLaughlin, Deputy County Executive, is here with us today, is a little bit of an expert on this, but this is a kind of a quasi tax foreclosure. It's a ghost owner, Mike?
Yeah, basically, the county had significant delinquencies on the property long before I was in my current role, and we were tracking it for many years. And until we had tried to dispose of the property in a different way that insulated the county from liability, and that didn't work out well. We can also speak to that. And so this was the next most creative way to deal with the property while insulating taxpayers from ultimate environmental liability, given the contamination that had come from the former owner. So the moral of the story is that we basically reinstituted the tax foreclosure and then passed the property through to the Alliance, to the LLC, to make sure that it could be properly managed. But it basically came to us through the tax foreclosure process.
So we've got we've got some work to do on this yet. And these are decisions that are going to have to be made. Tom Owens just pointed out that we may want to push out the closing on this a little bit so that we don't pick up any of the interim tax assessment from the town or the school district, that if we wait until next year, we can take the property over. It'll be designated as an exempt property, and until we develop it. But the issue of who takes lead from an environmental standpoint, I think that's going to be subject to some negotiations we have with the town. But ideally, as Dave said, it would be great to have the county play that role.
I think that would add tremendous value.
Yeah.
And we will, as part of our final recommendations, it's not in this presentation today, But we will, as part of our final report and final recommendations, talk about things like, doing a generic EIS in advance, establishing design guidelines and use guidelines that maybe go above and beyond, what the underlying zoning might require. Other things to ensure that you end up with the type of end users here that, is the objectives of the county and the Alliance.
Okay, Dave, you can continue.
So basically, we've developed 3 primary options for subdividing it, and you
Hey,
could probably
Dave,
do a million other versions of
Can I interrupt you for a minute? Hey, Luke, why don't you just orient everybody on the site so they know,
Yeah, at a high level, if you're looking at the very top of the screen, the road there is Spring Street, which essentially, if you keep going up to Sienna, you'll get to that part of Loudonville. Towards the bottom of the site is Second Ave, which is a quick cut through over to Broadway in Waterville. So you're essentially right on the Colony-Waterville border. As mentioned, it is in the town of Colony, but if you go immediately north, you're very close to the Arsenal. And then just one other point, it's a little bit cut off, but across the street is another brownfield that is of comparable size, actually a little bit bigger than the Altech site, which is being developed by Louisi companies, and they've parceled it into phases. So phase 1 is complete, and they have some warehousing and distribution. Then they're now tackling the northern part of their site for most likely more of the same.
thanks, Luke. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No problem. So it's like, some kind of a rectangular site. Obviously, the gray outline at the bottom of each of those photos concepts is the existing building. I also want to point out in pink with the dashed lines and the small pink rectangle, that is the existing easement with National Grid to their transmission lines, which are just off the site along the western border of this site, and where the substation is located. As I think Luke pointed out earlier, that is a major asset. It's a transmission level line. You have power available. There are some issues in terms of reestablishing that power on site, but that's something that can be worked with. In this case, what we identified is, creating a 20-acre parcel around the existing 150,000 square foot building, which under the one disposition scenario we talked about earlier, would give you some room to expand and do an expansion onto that building. And then creating, one of the things we try to do, especially in the action 1 on the left, is create smaller parcels under the understanding that you don't want to attract logistics and distribution companies to the site. You want essentially smaller users, high-tech users, advanced manufacturing type of uses to this site. And I think smaller sites might be more attractive to them. However, essentially option 1A shows you that you can easily combine those 4 5.1 acre sites into one larger site if necessary, if an end user came to you and said, I need a bigger site. Or you can do variations of that. You can make 2 10-acre sites out of the same thing. So one of the things what we would recommend if you were to serve as master developer is for you to do a subdivision plan in advance. And it's easy enough to make combine smaller sites than it is to subdivide larger sites. So just something to look at. But this gives you about, besides, establishing an internal access road, you want to make sure all the utilities are in there, sewer, water, et cetera, and as well as providing power to the rest of the site.
So that would be a town road.
It could be. I think that's negotiable. You could keep it as a private road. Ideally, I think, to your benefit, you'd want to turn it over to the town.
Yeah, and plus to make that, if you're gonna go with the 4, that one lot there would be frontage on town road to be a legally subdivided lot, I believe. I mean, I'm sure you could work something out, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dave.
Option 2 is just a little bit of a variation where, we're bringing option 1. If you look at the northern place where the internal access road enters Spring Street Road, It's kind of across from some residential areas. So one of the things we looked at in this option was to move that access road a little bit over to the west to avoid the residential area in terms of a major access to it. Again, creating, a primary option, creating 6 parcels, reducing the size of the parcel around the existing building to 15 acres, essentially, the minimum you might need to accommodate that building with parking and delivery and access, and then creating a mix of, medium-sized parcels, basically 7 to 8 to 9 acres to give you a variety of different size parcels to offer to end users. And again, in the upper right-hand corner, option 2A, it also does give you the ability to combine those 3 smaller parcels into one larger parcel if the developer or if an end user needs a bigger parcel to do that. One of the oddities in option 2 is the 6.9 acre parcel in the corner where you would need to provide an easement up to the internal service road. The ideal would be to avoid having to have any of those internal parcels having to be accessed from the existing Lincoln or Spring Street Road, where you really ideally would want them to be accessed from the internal service road. And then, a third option is just creating 7 parcels, so very similar to the last option, just creating a couple of smaller parcels, 5-acre parcels, along the area in the upper right-hand corner. But again, something that could be combined into a larger parcel if you do it. The service road, again, in this case, would be moved away from the area where the residents are at Spring Street Road. The parcel with the existing building, it would still stay at about 15.6 acres. So, but this gives you, a variety of different size parcels to be able to offer to different end users. And that's just to give you kind of a side-by-side comparison of the primary options for all 3. I don't think there's anything necessarily magic about any particular one, just giving you different ways of approaching, a subdivision of the property in different size parcels that you can create with them. Again, I think especially given the types of users that you would like to attract to the site, wanting to avoid larger warehousing, distribution, or logistics users, creating the smaller parcels gives you more flexibility to do that because you can always combine those at a later time.
Great, thank you, Dave. Anybody have any questions for Dave, or just comments in general? Okay. All right, Dave, thanks very much, appreciate it. Great job.
Okay, thank you. Take care, everybody.
Yeah. So, you can see this is moving along. We've got a ways to go yet. I'd estimate a year to 18 months before we're, and that's if things go well, before we're ready to really start marketing this for a developer. But the central question has got to be determined, and it's something you've got to make a decision on. Do we hire out a developer? Do we serve as the developer ourselves, or do we use that hybrid model of hire a developer, stay involved ourselves? So I think some of the things that are going to be coming up, and that Clayton and Luke will be working on, will help inform those decisions as we go ahead. It's not, we don't have to make a decision right here today, but ultimately we will have to do that. I have had conversations with the state ESD folks, the so-called Fast New York program, which provides money for infrastructure. They seem very interested in this site, and and we work very well with them. We assisted in getting a $17 million grant for the Port of Queens for the offshore wind project, which is kind of in a hiatus right now. But so there are some resources out there. But again, this is a great site for us for our semiconductor supply companies, our alternative energy companies, our clean tech, whoever they may be. I'm already getting calls from the likes of Skinnell Development, who does all the siting for Amazon's warehouses. They would love this site for warehousing distribution. We don't believe that's the highest and best use for the site. We're looking for high capital investment, high job numbers, for the obvious reasons. The county and the county exec has got a vision for this site that I think would be to the benefit of the entire county.
But if you got a user, if you got a targeted user who needed warehouse and distribution to support their business, you would consider that. Yeah.
Is there limitations like within the site? Like I know it has incredible access to power and all that, but for example, this is, is if one user came in and took up a lot of that capacity, then maybe having a diversified kind of collection, then maybe the warehouse folks would be more attractive
Right,
just
right.
because, okay, so there's.
It's, Dave said transmission level power, that's a lot of power.
Yeah, no.
That's like 10 megawatts, but, these offshore wind guys, the offshore wind manufacturers, they use that without a blink of an eye. Port of Queens is looking to get 40 megawatts of power down there to supply when GE was thinking about doing the turbine manufacturing facility down there. That's a possibility, and we'll have to deal with those. The one thing that we have to do, I think, the brownfield tax credits that Clayton mentioned earlier do nothing for us. We're tax exempt. So to make the greatest benefit of those, we have to identify a private developer to come in here who can, and they can be very, very lucrative, but you really need to have somebody who knows what they're doing with brownfields and and so on. Tom, anything you'd like to add to that? Tom has had some experience in these, and it's been a great help to us in getting through this with DEC.
No, it's all spot on, Kevin.
Okay.
All good.
Kevin, if we get the manufacturer to come into the main parcel, would you want to keep manufacturing the other parcels, or could you diversify it?
No, I'd love to have manufacturing in the entire place, again, because, they tend to be the higher paid jobs. They invest more in the site. But, as Rich said and Mike said, these will be decisions that we make along the way. The one thing that I didn't add that we do have to focus on too, there are some transportation challenges here. The access to and from the site from both the east and I guess the west side are both through residential neighborhoods. When Luke and I met with the town supervisor, Peter Crummy, he expressed some minor concern about that. And there is another path through which, is it FedEx?
FedEx.
Yeah, through the FedEx facility up there, that we might be able to get some access, truck access away from those residential neighborhoods. These plants were built in the days when they built houses right next to the manufacturing facility because people would walk to work, right? And now that's a negative because truck is for the, as times have changed. So that's something else we'll have to try to work our way through. But again, tremendous potential for this site, and there's a lot of money out there from the EPA and from the state that I think can help us develop this. And what the ideal scenario would be one in which we develop this site and we generate a revenue stream to help support the activities and operations of the Alliance going forward and developing other sites like this. Great work, Clayton, Luke.
So can I ask, even though
Yeah.
Amazon has reached out, you wouldn't entertain them because
No.
they would probably need the whole site and
Right.
the jobs aren't going to be.
No, you're exactly
My
right.
neighborhood would go nuts.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
There's, as Rich is saying, let's not forget about the debacle down in Queens with the big Amazon place, and that's a whole nother story. But these type of sites, Helen, you know what these places are, right? They're these major, most of it's robotic. The employment levels are low. The capital investment can be pretty high, but we're looking for something different. We're here to provide and create employment opportunities for the people of Albany County. So, and the highest employment opportunities, the better. And as we all know, from our Plug Power experience, they're hiring people at relatively high salaries, $75,000 an average annual salary. Does not require a college degree. And it's a real career path for people, so that's what we'd like to try to see happen here.
So potentially, it's really wonderful for this area of Colony, like Waterville, Cohoes, that historically had all these manufacturing companies, and I either in a positive way or a negative way, I had a long-term relationship with the Arsenal, and as the effort was made to privatize a portion of it and create additional jobs there, and in the end, the Army's going to have been right because they need the Arsenal, unfortunately, to produce their weapons these days. But whoever thought that was going to happen again? This is potentially a wonderful thing for this area that historically was blue collar and an opportunity for higher paying jobs without a college degree. It comes back to the effort that one of the committees made in workforce development, and which, I don't do sports analogies nor movie analogies, but when they said if they build it, they will come. The problem is there are lots of job opportunities, and we need to figure out how to encourage people to come into the area to take advantage of all of this. But this is a wonderful opportunity, and better for us because of the relationship with the environmental people that they can't come back and claim that there was something environmentally wrong when the property is developed. This is great work. It's just that you sit around this table, you want things to happen. And when you say a year and a half, it takes a lot of patience. Okay. Kevin, what else do you have?
That's all for my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We turn over the other business to Tom.
Yeah. Did you hear that, Tom?
Yes, sir. So I see that there's the two resolutions, and I'll try to make this very concise. First one deals with the new local public authority that was created, the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority, and I won't go a lot or spend much time involved talking about that authority. I understand Mike McLaughlin's in the room, Kevin, they can give you sort of the chapter and verse much better than I am, the purpose and standards, but or the rationale behind this authority. But it is recently created in late June, passed and then signed by the governor. The legislation, the enabling legislation, specifically references the Alliance, our entity, in a number of locations, and it specifically allows and contemplates that the Alliance would be an entity which would provide support, enter into what are called joint service agreements with the public authority, and actually provides that the Alliance would have certain input and advice functions to this new authority with respect to the appointment of their officers and things like that. So the resolution before you here allows the Alliance, authorizes the Alliance in the person of Kevin as the CEO to basically negotiate and execute agreements with either the authority and or third parties to support the authority's purpose. One of those would be the joint service agreements that the legislation specifically mentions, and also expend corporation resources, including funds, and utilize corporation employees and or contractors to support the authority's purpose. Again, that is specifically mentioned and referenced in the legislation. So that's the resolution before you, and I'll stop talking.
This is one of a couple of things that we expect to have additional conversation about in the executive session. did everyone have an opportunity to read the resolution? Are there, well, is there a motion to propose this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Okay. Are there any comments or questions before we bring this to a vote? Okay. All in favor of this resolution? Is there any member of the board that is opposed? Okay. So that's a unanimous vote of the members here today, Tom, thanks. Keep going.
Well, Alan, you may want to,
Wait.
hey, Tom, you want, well, you go ahead.
The next resolution deals with authorizing the Alliance to implement the Advanced Albany County Alliance Cultural and Arts Grant Program. Within the board package, you will see the draft guidelines that are presently been drafted by staff, and I think both Kevin and maybe Luke and others within the Alliance staff drafted these. And I know they've had some review and input already, maybe by the chairperson, but they are in the board package. And this resolution, again, allows the corporation to establish, administer, and manage this grant program pursuant to the attached charter, and authorizes the CEO to execute any and all related or necessary documentation to basically implement the grant program. So that's it.
So by way of information, I had several conversations with the county exec about this. He is one of the few governmental leaders that has understood and supported the concept that without arts and culture in Albany County, we're going to have a much more difficult time recruiting the businesses that we'd like to bring in here and the employees that come with those businesses. Again, there'll be a little more discussion about this in the executive session. Are there any questions? Well, first, is there a motion to recommend this resolution to our board? Okay, a second?
Second.
Great. I hope you've all had time to read it, and are there any comments or questions at this point? Okay. All in favor of this resolution? Again, is there anyone opposed? And again, this is a unanimous vote of the members here present today. Okay. Tom?
Yeah, I think next, I understand we would be looking for a motion to enter into executive session. And the purpose of the executive session would be to discuss the potential appointment of a particular corporation or person to do business with the Alliance.
Yeah.
So I would just need a first and a second.
Okay. So do we have to vote to go out of the meeting and then vote to go into executive session? Both. So can we have a
Well,
motion?
first we would, we'll just vote to go into executive session.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a motion. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Great. Okay. Executive session.
Wait one second.
Okay.
Hang,
Who we want to have first, we need some staff. Yes, Dylan's going to stay at the Pine Hills.
Yeah.